He said he wanted freedom. And I remember just standing there, frozen, not angry, not crying, just still. Because sometimes silence is the only thing left when your soul has already screamed itself empty. I smiled that night, a small, broken smile, and whispered, "Then go." That was the last word I said to him for a very, very long time. Before I continue, if you've ever loved someone so much that losing them felt like losing yourself, please take a deep breath and stay with me till the end. This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about what silence can teach you when love stops listening. And if you find even a piece of your heart in my words, please like this video, subscribe, and let my story remind you that sometimes the quietest goodbye is the loudest truth you'll ever speak. I used to believe love was a language everyone understood. That if you cared enough, tried enough, gave enough, they'd stay. But love isn't a language. It's an echo. And sometimes you realize too late that you've been talking to your own voice all along. When we first met, he was everything I thought I'd prayed for. Soft eyes, confident voice. That subtle way of looking at me like I was seen for the first time. He had this warmth, the kind that made me forget every winter I had lived through before him. He used to say things like, "You calm me," and I believed that meant I was safe. But calm is not always love. Sometimes it's just a pause before a storm. We built a life together, simple, small, wrapped in routines. Morning coffee, shared playlists, lazy Sunday breakfasts. It was never grand, but it was ours. And then slowly, painfully, it stopped feeling like ours. I noticed the distance before he ever spoke about it. It started with his eyes. They began looking through me instead of at me. Then his words. They became lighter, shorter, like he was saving his sentences for someone else. And then his silence, the kind that no longer felt peaceful, but strategic. I remember one evening, he came home late. His shirt smelled faintly of perfume that wasn't mine, not enough to accuse, just enough to ache. I made dinner anyway. We sat across from each other in that soft yellow light, and he talked about needing space, about figuring things out. And I just nodded. Because the thing about strong women is we don't always fight when we're hurt. Sometimes we just go quiet. That night when he said, "I need my freedom," I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't beg. I didn't cry because deep down, I already knew freedom was just another word for I want to see who else is out there. He packed his things slowly over the next few days. I watched him fold shirts I had ironed, shoes I had polished, and memories I had built into boxes that looked too small for everything we had been. And still, I said nothing. People think silence is weakness. But silence, real silence, it's strength wearing heartbreaks. Disguise. It's knowing you could scream, but choosing not to. It's standing still while your world moves on without you. I remember him leaving the keys on the table. He didn't look back. He didn't hug me. He just said, "I'll call you when things settle." And the door clicked. That sound, that tiny click, it was louder than thunder. It was the sound of everything ending. For days, I moved like a ghost. The house smelled like him. Even the pillows, the coffee mugs, the old blanket on the couch, everything whispered his name. But I refused to call him, because if he wanted freedom, then I would give it to him in its purest form. No texts, no calls, no tears he could see, just silence. The first week was the hardest. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., reaching for someone who wasn't there. I'd check my phone just to see. Nothing. Not a missed call. Not a message. Just silence staring back at me. The same silence I'd given him. But there's a strange kind of peace that comes after the pain begins to dull. You start to realize you were loving someone who had already left long before they packed a single bag. And that hurts, but it also sets you free. I started spending time alone, really alone. I went to coffee shops, sat by windows, listened to strangers laugh, and I learned something I had forgotten. I liked my own company. It wasn't immediate. This healing, it came in waves, gentle some days, brutal on others. I'd have mornings where I'd feel whole again, and nights where I'd cry into my pillow like the world had collapsed. But through it all, I kept my silence, because silence, once chosen, becomes a language of power. Then one day, I saw him. It had been 3 months. He was walking downtown with someone, a woman. Younger maybe, brighter somehow. They looked happy. He laughed. That same laugh that used to belong to my favorite moments. And still, I didn't look away. I stood there quietly, my heart pounding, and whispered to myself, he wanted freedom, and I gave it to him. He didn't see me that day. Or maybe he did, and pretended not to. Either way, it didn't matter, because something inside me shifted. I realized my silence wasn't emptiness anymore. It was space. Space for peace. Space for me. You don't realize how much noise a person brings into your life until they're gone, and suddenly, your thoughts are louder than their excuses ever were. He didn't call. He didn't text. And neither did I, because I was done being the echo. I was ready to be the voice. That was the first time I truly felt free, not because he was gone, but because I was no longer waiting for his return. But silence is a funny thing. It doesn't just stay between two people. It lingers, it grows roots. And sometimes it finds its way back, even to those who once asked for it. Because one evening, months later, my phone lit up with his name. And that's where everything changed. His name lit up my phone screen like a ghost I thought I'd buried. I stared at it for a long time, long enough for the ringing to stop. My heart didn't race this time, it only trembled a little, like a leaf remembering the wind. I didn't pick up. I couldn't. Not because I was angry, but because I had finally learned the cost of giving someone access to your peace. A few minutes later, a message came through. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I remember reading it and feeling this strange ache, like something sharp wrapped in nostalgia. Because that's what people do when guilt starts to whisper. They don't apologize, not directly. They just check in to see if the person they hurt is still there, waiting. I didn't reply. Instead, I set the phone down and went back to what I was doing, painting. I had started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. There was something healing about putting colors together that didn't belong, and still finding beauty in the mess. It reminded me of myself. That silence, the one he had asked for, and the one I gave him, it had changed me. It wasn't empty anymore. It was sacred. He called again that night, then the next day. Then he stopped. But silence has its own gravity. It pulls people back when their noise runs out. So, a few weeks later, I saw his name again. This time, it was a longer message. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I know I hurt you. I just needed time to figure things out. But I miss you. I really do. I read it once, then twice. And all I could think was, he wanted freedom, and he got it. Now he was tasting what it really meant to be free from something that loved him completely. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I had finally learned what he hadn't. Not every silence is waiting. Some silences are healing. The old me, the woman who waited by the phone, who replayed every memory trying to find where it went wrong, she would have answered. But this version of me, she had changed. In my quiet, I had rebuilt myself. I had started working again, taking on projects I used to put aside for us. I had begun to laugh again, not because of someone, but in spite of everything. I was softer, but stronger, lonelier, but freer. And then one afternoon, while sitting at a cafe, I saw him again. Not by accident this time. He walked in, saw me, and froze. There was that flicker in his eyes, the kind that happens when the past meets reality. He looked older somehow, not in age, but in spirit, like freedom had turned into something heavy to carry. He smiled a little, nervous. "Hey." I looked up, calm, and smiled back. "Hi." It was strange, hearing his voice again after so long. It didn't sting the way I thought it would. He asked if he could sit, and I nodded. He talked a lot that day about work, about how life had been, about how things with her didn't really work out. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. I could see the regret sitting quietly behind his eyes. "I thought I needed space," he said, stirring his coffee slowly. "But I think I just needed peace. And I didn't realize that peace was you." For a moment, the air felt heavy again. Old feelings tried to wake up inside me, but I didn't let them, because this wasn't the same story anymore. I looked at him, really looked at him, and said softly, "You didn't want peace. You wanted freedom, and you found it. I'm happy for you." He looked at me then, as if searching for anger, or hurt, or something he could hold onto, but there was nothing left to hold. That silence between us, it wasn't awkward. It was final. He knew it. I knew it. He asked if we could start over. I smiled politely. "You can't start over with someone who had to learn to live without you." He nodded, looking down. I deserve that. I didn't say yes or no. I didn't owe him either. Instead, I finished my coffee, stood up, and said the same two words I had said months ago. "Take care." This time, when I walked away, I didn't look back. Not because I wanted him to regret it, but because I had finally learned what freedom meant to me. Freedom wasn't about being without someone. It was about being without the need for them. That night, I came home and sat by the window, the same one I used to stare out of when he first left. The moonlight fell across the floor, soft and familiar, and I realized my silence had become my sanctuary. He texted me again later that week. Just a simple, "I miss you. Can we talk?" I read it, smiled, logged my phone, and whispered to myself, "You had your chance." Days turned into weeks, and he kept trying. Small messages, songs we used to share, even showing up at places I went. But I never answered, because silence, once chosen with peace, is louder than any words spoken in regret. He started to fade after that, like a sound moving farther away. And in that fading, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Contentment. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a peaceful one. And sometimes that's enough. I learned that silence isn't revenge. It's redemption. It's the final act of self-respect after love has been exhausted. And though he never said it out loud, I could see it in his eyes the last time I saw him across the street. He finally understood the power of the silence he once asked for. Freedom had never been what he wanted. It was me. But by the time he realized that, I had already become someone who no longer needed to be wanted. It's strange how life settles after the storm, not with a loud bang, but with silence that feels almost holy. Months had passed since the last message. I never replied, not because I was holding a grudge, but because I didn't have anything left to say. You see, when you've walked through heartbreak long enough, you stop looking for closure from the person who broke you. You start giving it to yourself, piece by piece, in quiet mornings, in long walks, in the way the sunlight touches your face and you realize you're still here. That's what healing really is. It's not forgetting them. It's remembering yourself. I began to travel more, alone at first, and there was something poetic about it. eating breakfast at a small cafe in a city where no one knew my name, watching strangers laugh, watching couples hold hands, and realizing I didn't envy them anymore. There was a time I used to believe love had to come from someone else. Now I understood. Love could simply be the way I treated myself when no one was watching. One evening, I was sitting by the sea. The sky was melting into shades of orange and gold. I had my sketchbook open, drawing waves, how they came and went endlessly, without asking permission. That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me, soft, hesitant, still painting the world. I see. I didn't turn around immediately. I didn't need to. I knew that voice. It was him. I smiled faintly. The world never stopped being beautiful. I just stopped noticing it for a while. He stood beside me quietly. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Just the sound of the water between us, like time itself, was exhaling. He looked different now. Older, quieter, softer. The kind of soft that only comes from regret. I didn't know you'd be here, he said, his voice almost breaking. I didn't know either, I replied. But I guess life likes to test us one last time before it lets us go. He looked down, then back at me. I've thought about what I did every single day. I let his words float away with the wind. I didn't need to collect them anymore. He took a deep breath. You were right. I didn't want peace. I wanted freedom. But freedom without you felt like a cage. I turned to him, calm, steady, and peace without you felt like home. He blinked, his eyes glossy. Is it too late? I looked out at the horizon, the sun sinking slowly into the ocean, and for a moment, I remembered everything. The laughter, the nights, the promises, the tears, the silence. It's not too late, I said softly. He looked up, hopeful, until I continued. It's just not for us. His expression fell, and for the first time, he didn't argue. He just nodded. I understand. And I knew he did, because this wasn't anger speaking anymore. It was acceptance. I stood up, closed my sketchbook, and smiled gently. You taught me something, I said. He looked at me, surprised. What's that? That love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go with grace. He nodded slowly. And then, for the first time since he left, I saw peace in his eyes too. We said goodbye quietly, not like people ending something, but like two souls finally setting each other free. That night, I went home and sat by the window again. The same window that had witnessed my pain, my silence, my growth. The moonlight poured in like a familiar friend. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about him. I didn't think about what was lost. I just felt grateful. Grateful that I had been loved, even if it ended. Grateful that I had been hurt, because it taught me strength. Grateful that I had let go, because it gave me myself. I whispered to the night, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just at peace. A few days later, I posted one of my paintings online. A woman standing in front of the ocean, her hair flowing in the wind. The caption read, she learned that grace isn't weakness. It's strength that chooses silence over revenge. The comments filled with people who said it made them cry, that they felt seen, that they were going through the same kind of quiet healing. And for the first time, I realized my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was every woman who'd ever been told she was too old, too emotional, too much. Every woman who had been replaced, then rediscovered herself and found she was irreplaceable. That was grace. And that was the ending I never expected. Not a love story between two people, but a love story between me and life itself. If he ever sees me again, maybe in a gallery or across a crowded street, I hope he smiles. Because I will dot not because I still love him, but because I finally learned what love truly means. It means forgiving him and myself. It means letting the story end beautifully, quietly, gracefully. And maybe that's what he meant when he once said, "You're too old to be loved." Because now I know. I was never too old. He was just too young to understand the kind of love that grows even after it breaks. Camera pans out. The woman stands near the sea, wind in her hair, sunset behind her. Her voice fades, soft and calm. I showed him what grace looks like.